So we are ready to start our next presentation. Let's get Ed Story and Ron Levick up here with me, Paul Marshall. We'll talk about COVID-19 operations in CalDART. So I will leave it to our trusty team to get us going with the video. Do a couple introductions first. Ron Levick is our Executive Director for the San Diego CalDART Group. They're hoping to get their first initial operating experience in this fall's exercise. Ron has been a big player in COVID-19 operations for us. Thanks for coming on today, Ron. And we also have Ed Story with us. Ed is from one of the very early CalDART chapters around the state at Santa Monica. Ed is going to be manning the chat and question lines for us, so keep those chats and questions coming. Ed, any comments before we start?
No comments other than that is a emergency airplane behind me.
Looks good. Well,
it's a CL-144?
No, it's a CL-415.
Oh, I couldn't see it long enough. Yes, it's got the turbines.
With that, I will go ahead and share a screen and we'll put up a slideshow for everyone. This will be our CalDART slideshow, COVID-19 operations. Starts off with a very pretty picture of three of our team up at Sacramento at the Cal OES Operations Center. I'll give it just a minute to paint.
It must be cold up there.
I imagine so.
Little one doesn't look very happy though.
Yeah, that's my 4-year-old daughter now. She was about a year old then. And she was very unhappy that we thought it was fun to take a picture in the snow. Ron, tell everybody a little bit about this picture here.
Well, this is a picture of three of our team standing in front of the Cal OES Operations Center up in Sacramento. And we had delivered some initial equipment up there, and we thought that it would be fun to take a picture of the front. If you've never been up there, you should take it. You should take the opportunity to get up there and see it. It is truly a first-class, world-class operations center in which the Cal OES operates uses control for all throughout California.
And I'll have to say that Ron Levick is not only everything he's done, but he is also our uniform development director. So those blue vests, white shirts, and blue pants are all thanks to Ron. Thank you for your work on that, Ron. Before we get off this slide, we had the pilot who flew with us that day, and Colette Armau from Sacramento. She's a former Caltrans Division of Aeronautics planner, and was also our host in Sacramento that day to get us around the airport and out to Cal OES and that sort of thing. Well, very good. So looking at the next statement here, what's CalDART's mission statement? Why do we exist? So our whole goal is to make people prepared. You know, we have 50,000 pilots in California, 54,000. We can do a whole lot in an emergency. And in years past, we've done a little bit in emergencies, but we could do more. So how do we do that? We prepare the pilots and the ground personnel to provide volunteer air transportation services with little companies. And of course, that benefits the communities around our airports and the whole state. Typically, the kinds of things that cause a need for us are things like earthquake, flood, and fire. But it could be any kind of disaster, for instance, like COVID-19. Of course, there's a whole lot of leverage if all the roads and freeways are out. But we don't necessarily have to have those out to go ahead and answer the call and be of service. FEMA makes disaster plans for the whole nation. They have really nice ones for the Bay Area and Southern California. Here's a steal of a page out of the Bay Area plan. They project, you know, what would happen if a 7.9 earthquake struck on the San Andreas Fault, not far from the Golden Gate Bridge. And this happens to be the transportation page of how transportation is affected 3 days later. Most of those red dots are freeway overpasses that have fallen, but there are also railroad bridges, BART trains, and other kinds of transportation links that are down. And what this tells you is that the whole Bay Area would be crippled, absolutely crippled for regional surface transportation after a major earthquake. So how could we use our airports to combat something like that? With a little aggressive planning and preparation and drafting of pilots into the fold to help out, we could create a regional transportation grid. Imagine all the pilots at your airports becoming Uber drivers for a couple of weeks, helping people get around the whole area. Short distances can be traveled by things like bicycle or walking, but 50 miles and 30 and 100 miles are so helpful to do with a plane. So here's how you could use the 30 airports around the Bay Area, for instance, as an alternate regional transportation grid. In the San Francisco Bay Area, airports like Oakland and San Francisco International are just a few feet above sea level. Chances are good. Not only that, they're built on fill, very soft soil subject to liquefaction. They might be out of service. There might be just one airport in service, such as San Jose International. Well, that can connect us to the outside world, but how do the 7 million people living around the Bay Area get connected to San Jose International? They could use Reed Hillview, which is a small airport just across town, has 2 runways and could serve another 27 airports to get people to and from regionally so that they could fly out of San Francisco International. Here's an example of how airports were used during the last major earthquake in the Bay Area, the Loma Prieta earthquake of 1989. Pilot organizations from 5 different airports set up relief operations. Initially, it was invoked by the food bank of Contra Costa County that could not get food to its sister food bank of Santa Cruz County. All the roads through the San Andreas Fault through the Santa Cruz Mountains were cut, and they were unpassable. So very quickly, the community in Watsonville was getting very uncomfortable. Highway 17, Highway 9, and just about all the ways to get in were cut. So there was a big transport operation, food, clothing, tents. About 500,000 pounds of food and supplies was transported in just a few days. Here's a map of California. I apologize for the small dots, but if you look carefully, you'll see red dots, such as these ones here, and white dots. These shows our present distribution of DART operators and DART supporters and members. So we have operators at 11 airports right now and members at 22 airports. A DART operator is a team that has an annual exercise based at an airport. We have one team that's regional in the North Bay. And San Diego will likely be doing its first exercise as a regional group. But they exercise yearly, with practice operations to keep their skills up, also to build connections into the emergency community. In addition to that, we have another 22 airports represented, just with single or 2 people that can help out in the DART network, but they haven't gone to the extra step of forming a team. So what are the disaster transport needs? There are so many things you can do in a disaster. We have first responders need to get around. A lot of times people who are emergency medical technicians or firemen or policemen, they can't afford to work in the communities where they're hired. And so you can help them with their commute just to get them to work for that 30-mile commute they need to make, that 60-mile commute. There could be families that can't occupy their housing. You can evacuate them. You could have senior citizens who can no longer stay in their residential homes that need to be taken somewhere. Well, they can be taken to other homes around the state by evacuating them out of their local airports that are not far away. Families at the time of an earthquake might be widely separated. Parents might be at distant commuted jobs. Kids might have traveled a long distance to school. We can use our airports to get them connected again. People with medical disabilities. A lot of people are very fragile, and you might not realize this, but a lot of people can die in a week after a disaster strikes, and they might otherwise be leading, fully worthwhile lives. Dialysis patients, for example. If you're on dialysis and you don't get a lot of water, a lot of clean water, clean supplies, and electrical power, you're dead in a week. So people that are fragile medically, they would need to be evacuated. And so many examples like that. The food example from Watsonville was such a big one as well for the cargo, the food and supplies and tents that were transported to them. Very good. So let's go to the next slide. So how to participate in CalDART. You could be a member by joining up at our organization, CalDART.org, and be sure to stop by. We've had a few people join as a result of this seminar, and we could use more. As a CalDART member, you get the information that comes out, the emails and the brochures and announcements. You can also support mobilizations at other airports by helping out as a pilot or as ground staff. And importantly, you can educate your community about how your airport can be used in a disaster and what they can do and how you can help them get that aid. So finally, you can provide and request mutual aid from all the different CalDART operators around the state. So now the next level of participation is participating as a CalDART operator. So as an operator, you have this annual exercise I was mentioning. You form a DART at your airport. The hard thing is finding somebody that'll really drive the thing. You know, it takes a little bit of organizational skill, a little bit of leadership, planning skill, and a lot of want in order to make a DART go. And so finding that person is a little bit hard. Even if you don't want to be that person, you can provide a lot of assistance and help by helping recruit that person. So when you find that person, the next thing they do is get some helpers so that it's not such a big job. You know, it's very easy to get pilots to show up one day a year to go fly something, but it's a little bit harder to get things organized ahead of time. So a big part of it is inviting the community to participate, imagining some practice operations that they can get involved in. Maybe get your local community emergency response teams involved, American Red Cross and others, your emergency managers from your local cities. Make it a whole community kind of thing. And of course, from your fellow DART operators, you can get them to come out and help as well, or maybe arrange transport flights in between your two airports. So now let's get into some of our specific COVID-19 operations. The very first thing we had to do was figure out, well, could we even fly? And we were very lucky. We have CalDART medical officer, Daniel Masis, who right away started providing some information for us. CalDART's a part of a bigger group called the Air Care Alliance, which is all the public benefit flying organizations around the United States. So these organizations are people with names you've heard of, Angel Flight West, East, PAWS and Pilots. There's a number of them around the United States. They had a big powwow of all their leadership saying, what do we do about flying? Can we still fly? So at the last second, I thought Dan might be able to contribute to this discussion. So he jumped on and immediately was flooded with all kinds of questions. And within just 2 or 3 days, he had a very nice white paper created. Dr. Hunter Hansfield joined him. He's formerly on the board of Angel Flight West, and they kept iterating that for a couple, 3, 4 weeks till they had it perfect. Next thing we had to do was find a base of operation. And Ron, you want to tell a little bit about the journey of exploration you had to get us there?
Sorry, is that for Ron?
For Ron, that's right.
Oh, okay. Thank you. When we identified that we could be of value to the pandemic, we began to organize along the lines of the of our DART operational guide, and we needed to find a base of operations. And as sometimes happens, we actually had a person who is a CalDART member up in Central California, Josh Hochberg, who owns the Sonoma Jet Center up there. And he donated space at the Carlsbad Jet Center that he manages for a trust that owns the property. And he was very generous. He charges us $1 a month for the rent and unlimited space and unlimited support. And it's been a fantastic base of operations.
Thank you, Ron. We've got a couple questions that have come in. I see Robert.
First,
you go ahead.
We've got a question from Robert Heinholz. Do you help with insurance? There have been cases where pilots volunteering to help have been sued. Our policies may or may not cover us for an operation like this.
Yeah, so that gets into the insurance question. CalDART maintains a couple kinds of insurance. We have general liability insurance and we have non-owned aircraft liability insurance. It protects CalDART, the corporation, its officers and directors, and all of its members. So that's the primary insurance that CalDART provides. We also require all of our participating pilots to carry $1 million of insurance on their aircraft. So those are the three basic umbrellas of insurance that protect the operation right now. So it's not that we totally protect the pilot, but that together we mutually provide protection for the people who interface with us. As we get wealthier in the future, we hope to buy more insurance and offer more protection. We're also working at getting disaster service worker coverage for our ground workers. So we're still a work in process. Good question, thank you. And by the way, before we go on, Mike Jesh, to heck with the end, how about if we just take a quick pause and we do a little timeout for wings? So Mike, take it away.
All right, yeah, just a quick Q&A here. I've been fielding a lot of questions about how do you get your wings credit. I know normally when you go to a live seminar, you'll initial your attendance on the attendance sheet at the entry, and whoever's handling the event will take care of that. Of course, we don't have an entry, so we don't have a sign-up sheet for you to initial when you get here, but we do have Zoom, and we had you register for this entire event. So Zoom is taking care of attendance for us. As long as you're here for a good portion, for a majority of those particular parts of the day that are going to be valid for wings credit. That will show up in our attendance sheet, even if you got here a little late or left a little early. I'm not going to tell you how much early, but as long as you were here for a portion of the talk, then your credit will be automatically granted. Now, this only works if the email address that you use to register for the webinar is the same one that you use for your FAAsafety.gov website, wings credit. If those emails are different, now I've got to do a manual process. So in the announcement for the event, the SPANS notice you got, I was the point of contact, so you've got my email address in there. If you use a different email address for your wings credit, I would ask you please to just drop me an email with the correct email address that you want to use for your credit, and also to throw in the one that you used for the Zoom registration, and then I can do a cross-check and take care of the credits for you automatically. So I intend to do this process probably on Monday, maybe Tuesday this week. Certainly it should be done by Wednesday. So if you haven't gotten the credit by about the end of the week, let's say Friday, then poke me again, send me another email. I either need to get off the video games or stop flying flight sim and get in here and get the credit done. But I'm going to try to get it done earlier in the week. So that is the process. If you have any questions on it, you can fling it down in the chat box and I'll answer it there, or send me an email and I'll take care of it there. So
thank you, Mike.
That's all I got. Thank you
very much.
Okay. Paul, we have one other question for the DART folks, for us folks. Is there anyone at the state level or federal caucus to which you could or are addressing the insurance/liability question?
You know, we're volunteers and we don't have unlimited time to address things like this. If you want to come join us and help take on a task, we'd greatly appreciate it. So no, at this time, we're not directly addressing that particular item. We are protected by Good Samaritan laws within the state, but keep in mind that if we do a practice exercise to build our skills, at that particular day, it's not an emergency. And then, you know, it's not just an ingrate that would be suing us. It might be somebody, a grieving widow of somebody who died. And they might have had a very large loss, and in their very deep state of grief, they might have costs and expenses to cover, and they might be a little bit angry. So at any rate, moving on. We'll need to go back to
Paul, before you move on, I believe there was a question about who are the people in the picture.
Go ahead, Ron.
So the folks on the left under the Sonoma Jet Center, that is Josh, and one of the people who donated the supplies. He has a beautiful 340 twin, that he flies around. And interestingly, because he flies between Sonoma and Carlsbad on a regular basis because of his management, he works out as almost a shuttle flight for moving stuff from the north to the south. So he works out very well. On the right, are the person in the, let's see, I'm trying to see. Paul, are you in that picture? I can't tell.
Nope, not me. I see you, Ron.
Okay,
And
I'm
a
the,
pilot. The person in the way back is the pilot of that beautiful Cessna.
there you go. The pilot's in the very back. And then the folks in the front are one of the organizations that were making and donating face shields that we were transporting around. And of course, the guy in the DART uniform there is probably me. So that's who those folks.
Very good. Thank you, Ron. So we had to adapt to work into remote operations. Originally, our disaster airlift response plan had nothing but paper and pens for creating documentation. We adapted that to a Google Documents environment so we could have work teams spread out across the state organizing things. Here's some pictures of people that received benefits. The people on the left there with the thumbs up, that's Project Open Hand in San Francisco. They give food directly to underprivileged people on the street, and they need personal protective equipment just like any first line workers, and we're very appreciative for their face shields. Up above on the top picture there, you see a load of face masks, 5,000 face masks being flown from Lincoln to Chino. The pilot was Jeffrey Whitesell, and they were stored in Lincoln near the home of someone who drove down to Sacramento and picked them up from the Sacramento VOAD, who got them from FEMA. So very nice teamwork effort all the way around.
And is he flying a seaplane?
He's flying a very old Beechcraft product. I think it might be like a Queen Air or like maybe even a twin Bonanza. Beautiful old plane. So here was our longest flight. Brian Deere and his son Sebastian took the call, and they flew a load of face shields up from picking them up by pickup truck in Redwood City, California, driving them down to his hangar in Palo Alto Airport, hopped them in his plane, and delivered them to Walla Walla. They were totally out of PPE. This was very early in the pandemic. The EOC there put out a call for assistance. It got picked up by the Seattle group of disaster airlift response team operators and relayed to us. We got global support and development to provide 500 face shields. And within 24 hours of the time the face shields were made available to us, we already had them up in Walla Walla, Washington, delivered. So we had to find donors to give us all this stuff. We didn't make it ourselves. Ron already pointed out the Youth Golf Alliance. I'll put a little picture on them here. They did an outstanding job. They're golf team people from 31 high schools, or recruited out of 31 high schools in the San Diego area. Below them were the Marshall Hearts, a really cute group of younger kids that had a project to build a bunch of face shields. Of course, FEMA was a workhorse and gave us tons of stuff. Global Support and Development, I mentioned them. They've been teaming with us on CalDART exercises for about a year, so we gave them a call when we had this need for COVID assistance. And the Sacramento Region VOADs, Voluntary Organizations Active in Disaster, they were the ones that got us that first 5,000 face shields for LIGA down in Chino, California. The ventilator shortage. Ron, can you tell everybody the story of the ventilators?
Well, this is a long and sordid story, but I'll try to make it short and sweet. When we were first approached by a citizen in San Diego to help distribute PPEs that they were collecting, we got set up, got ramped up, and started to distribute various kinds of PPEs.
Hey Ron, could I jump in real quick? Your video is turned off. It'd be nice for people to be able to see you.
You know, the problem is my audio went bad on me.
Okay, good enough. Leave it that way then. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry. You guys see enough of me. So we started out the initial part of the pandemic in providing the local PPEs to the Southern California, Northern California area. As those ran out, we then transitioned by accident to masks, which then rapidly transitioned to face shields. And then we found out a need for an emergency use ventilator. And what this is, it's the device that actually automatically pumps a ambu bag. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. That's the thing you see on TV when the paramedics go, bag him, and the guy squeezes the bag after they've stuck the intubation into the patient. So we found out that Rice University had created a buildable unit, and we contacted them and got set up to build them. Located some builder bot robot kind of groups here in San Diego who love to use the 3D printers and laser cutters to make things, and we got a lot of donations to build them. They cost about $500 a piece to build, so we got donations to do it, and the BuilderBot folks in San Diego built them. So CalDART's role, it was to organize getting them built and then getting them delivered to where they were needed. So we began an air bridge to deliver those to the areas throughout Western United States that were needed. And this is a picture of the first flight we made in the operation directly for the ventilator operation. We had some parts emergency manufactured in Vegas, and so these gentlemen went out and picked them up and brought them back directly to us here at the Carlsbad Jet Center, where we got them to the makers and got them assembled. So this was very exciting. It's interesting how quickly you can get something done if you have the right people in the right place at the right time. And that's probably one of the biggest lessons we learned. This took probably less than 8 hours from the time we heard we needed it, realized we needed it till the time we had it. So that was really good. And that includes manufacturing. So that was very exciting. Next slide. Paul, oh, there we go. So we started to build these ventilators, and we realized that they needed to be, the ventilator you see is on the lower left there. The blue box is what we built. And then the ambu bag is that it looks like a football there in the center. And what it does is it squeezes that football at a particular rate, at a particular volume, and a particular release, which is specified medically for patients. The device on the far left is a fake lung. So this was during the testing. So what we did is we contacted Scripps Hospital Group here in San Diego. We contacted the CEO and told him what we're doing and that we needed it to be evaluated and with giving us input into whether the hospitals this was actually a good piece of equipment they could use. So on the right, you can see the Scripps Hospital technical teams running it, checking it, running oxygen through it, testing it with all their very devices. And they found two improvements to it. Otherwise, they liked it very much, and they knew it would be very useful in an emergency situation. And so we modified our build so that the units would have the two additional features, and went into production with our builders. Next slide. Paul, oh, there we go. And the first units we sent were to Cal OES. Cal OES has a full medical team of doctors and nurses and paramedics that they called upon to work throughout California. Cal OES is a very good organization and very well run. So Bob Schumacher jumped in his Piper Lance, and I rode in the very back because we had to have social distancing. So he got to sit in the front, and I had to sit in the cargo compartment. And we delivered 5 units up to Sacramento to Cal OES. Well, next. And here, of course, I think you've seen the picture at the top. That's us at Cal OES. I did want to really quickly show you down at the bottom left here. You can see what we did. We changed the ventilators to be clear boxes, and we encased them in a protective case because we realized that just giving them to a medical group didn't mean that they could continue to use them and keep them safe, et cetera, and move them around. So we bought these yellow boxes intentionally because in the medical field they don't have very many yellow boxes, so they could just say, grab that yellow box. And then of course all the instructions and everything are also in yellow, so they match. So we did some logical planning for the folks. This is Bob Edwards. We needed to bring 3 of the 5, Cal OES and us needed to bring 3 of the 5 ventilators back to San Diego for use. So we we asked Bob to grab 3 and bring them down, which he did, which was great. We were able to move them in and put them into the places that they're needed most critically. Next.
Okay, so Ron, I'll take it back over from here unless there's anything else you wanted to say about ventilators.
Well, one thing I would like to say is, you know, you never know what a disaster is going to need. And I think one of the things that this taught us 2 really important things. One is be open-minded and flexible. And 2, this is the first time we actually ran an operation where the people were all remote. We had 4 or 5 people involved in this. They were all physically different in different locations. And yet we were able to conduct this operation just as it was designed for CalDART. And one thing we did was Paul turned all the paper documents into virtual and put them on our Google Drive. And so now we can actually run an operation where the individual operator people are not in the same location.
Thank you, Ron. So let's go ahead and take some questions. Ed Story, can you get us brought up to date on our questions?
Hold on. We don't have any questions right at the moment, so we might put out a request for questions.
I think I see something in the chat from Rich Allison, which was, what is the cost to join? So the cost of joining CalDART is $45 for membership, and that goes 2 ways. As a CalDART member, you're also a member of CalPilots. So there's a $15 split to CalDART and a $30 split to CalPilots. A little bit of a discount from the $35 cost you would otherwise pay if you had to pay it whole. But you don't have to join both. Joining CalDART also gets you membership in CalPilots. So let's see. Mark Van Wyk. So Mark Van Wyk is a CalDART member from San Martin Airport, part of the SCAPA DART, the very first DART that was ever created. And he says that Josh Hochberg, which is that fellow who had the bandit mask on at Sonoma Jet Center as he was delivering face shields, he stopped by San Martin Airport today on a commuter flight from Santa Rosa down to Carlsbad Jet Center to pick up 500 face shields. Was it 500 or 500 face masks, right, Ron?
500 face shields.
500 face shields. So,
Yes.
And that's going to go to your VOAD organizations in San Diego area.
Correct.
Okay.
And Paul,
Yes,
are
sir.
we looking for people that have particular certifications?
Yeah. So, you know, if you're an IFR pilot, that's really valued because you can, you know, that assumes you're current as well as ready. But that's helpful because the weather often has marine layers and stratus and other things that are a problem. Certifications, you know, if you have a plane that you can fly, it's very helpful. A real hard thing we have trouble finding is people to do the ground operations and to organize those. So if you're also willing to do those, that's very helpful. Was that the kind of a question they were asking, Ed?
Yes. Well, that and outside certifications, such as you might find in local areas for emergency services, like do you know how to do first aid and that kind of thing.
Yeah, we don't really try to set ourselves up as a first aid operation because we have limitations on competence. We want to be good at flying planes and delivering goods and running a logistics operation. And as a volunteer organization, just having simple competence is a lot tougher than you might think. That said,
are there particular FEMA certifications that are required?
Well, so this gets into a second area. We're only useful if we can integrate into the bigger system. So FEMA has a national incident management system, which defines how the whole nation is run in disasters. And it has something called the incident command system, which is the specifics of how you run on a given incident command. And it's important for all of these hundreds of different types of organizations that work together around the United States in responding to disasters to understand how the system works. And so these FEMA certifications, there's IC 100, 200, 700, there's a bunch of them that give you that bigger picture. And as you're reaching out to your communities and trying to involve your city emergency management, your county emergency management, finding out who your county group is that runs the volunteer organizations active in disaster. You need to know how the system works to even understand who you should be talking to. And let me take just a moment on that volunteer organizations active in disaster. That's part of the National Incident Management System. All the volunteer groups, whether it's CalDART or the American Red Cross or Salvation Army or the food banks, the people who provide sheltering and care, people who provide emotional and spiritual counseling, all of them are supposed to join their local VOAD, Volunteer Organization Active in Disaster.
And I could add to that to say that down in Santa Monica, we have a SMOAD, which is Santa Monica organizations that are active in disasters, which meets with the city.
That's a terrible acronym.
I didn't create it. By the way, Jim Shamp has asked the question, what if you're already a CalPilots member? Are you a CalDART member as well? Or what is the fee to join CalDART?
Yeah, I just mentioned that was $45.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to add a couple quick things to the question earlier. We obviously want pilots and airplanes, but and I know Paul touched on it, but you know, a lot of people can also bring other skills who are non-pilots, and I would encourage that all you pilots out there, if you have friends or loved ones who want to be involved too, that they join as part of the ground operation. And we almost can use anybody. In fact, we actually have used people who are medically very indigent or ill, and they still operated very well because they wanted to do something. So I would encourage you to not leave out your friends and loved ones. And the other thing that comes up, and I think this is important, is, well, what if I want to join CalDART, but there's no team close to me. There's no operators, as we call them. And I encourage you greatly to, if you have a passion to help, to sign up, because what we can do is first of all, we keep you on our active roster list to ask you to help anytime, no matter where it is physically, but also we can have you become affiliated with a team that's nearby. So for example, let's just say that you don't live in Torrance, but you live in Van Nuys. Well, Torrance has a team, so you can become affiliated with them.
One other question having to do with certifications, which opens up a different area of inquiry, is it's useful, according to Santosh Kumar, it's useful to have an FCC amateur radio license. And you might want to speak on the radio connections that we've attempted to put together, Paul, throughout the city, throughout the state.
Sure. So part of the thing we do in our exercise, this year's exercise, for instance, we're going to use the Clara network and lean on a whole team of amateur radio operators throughout the state. But we're going to connect all of our DART airports throughout the state. And so that's a part of the emergency fallback. When the telecommunication system goes down, the amateur radio system may be a big help. And things like satellite radio are a help too. We also had a question about whether, I think this was from Jim Shamp, whether membership in CalPilots gave you membership in CalDART. And the answer is no, it doesn't work that way. You get a discounted cost if you only get the membership in CalPilots. If you want to be a member of CalDART, you got to pay the higher cost, and that gives you membership in both.